Hey guys, tonight we're uncovering the shocking and disturbing dining habits of ancient Roman aristocrats where luxury met excess in the most bizarre ways. Imagine feasts filled with strange delicacies, extravagant banquets, and rituals that would leave most of us stunned. These weren't just meals, they were displays of power, wealth, and sometimes pure decadence. If you're curious about the darker side of history and what really went on behind closed palace doors, this video is a must-watch. Before we jump in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below with where you're watching from. Get ready for a feast of fascinating facts. Imagine yourself stepping slowly through the heavy wooden doors of a grand Roman domus. The air shifts, thick with the mingling scents of burning oil from flickering lamps, and the subtle wafts of exotic spices teasing your senses. You find yourself in a sprawling dining room, the triclinium, where the walls are adorned with colorful frescoes, delicate vines curling beside mythic scenes, and the floor beneath your feet is a mosaic of tiny, shimmering tiles, catching the soft light just so. The room hums gently with a murmur of voices, soft laughter, and the occasional clink of goblets filled with ruby red wine. Around you, guests recline leisurely on plush, cushioned couches arranged in a horseshoe shape. Their flowing togas drape elegantly, a blend of white and dyed silks that catch the flickering lamplight. Shimmering with every subtle movement, you ease down onto one of these couches, feeling the softness beneath you, the rich upholstery supporting you, as if inviting you to sink into a world apart from the bustle outside. This is not just a meal, it is an experience designed to envelop all your senses and signal the height of Roman sophistication. Before you lies an opulent display of dishes, each plate a small work of art. Imagine the delicate sheen of roasted peacock, its feathers trimmed with precision, or the vibrant reds and greens of marinated olives and pickled vegetables. Platters brim with fruits, bright pomegranates, glossy figs, and luscious dates, their sweetness promising to linger on your tongue long after the feast ends. As you lean forward, the aroma of spiced honey mingles with the sharp tang of fermented fish sauce, known as garum, a staple beloved and feared in equal measure. The scent is bold, an acquired taste that signals wealth and worldly connections. Since such sauces were imported or carefully crafted from afar, your fingers brush the cool surface of a goblet, and the faint clinking sound harmonizes with the soft strings of a lute played in the corner, weaving a gentle melody that seems to float in the air like a delicate breeze. The music isn't loud, just enough to add a layer of warmth to the atmosphere, inviting you to relax deeper into this sensory tapestry. Here, in this refined setting, dining transcends the simple act of eating. It is a carefully orchestrated, social dance, where every bite, sip, and gesture carries meaning. Seating arrangements reflect power and favor. Those closest to the host are granted honor, while alliances are forged over shared plates and wine. You notice the subtle nods between guests, the knowing smiles exchanged in whispers, and the way the host, perhaps a senator or wealthy patrician, guides the conversation with effortless charm. This is a performance of civility and influence, where food is the language of prestige and connection. The courses arrive in a leisurely procession. First, the gestatio or appetizer, where light fare, like eggs, stuffed with herbs and garum, or tiny fish dipped in honey, offer a tantalizing beginning. Each morsel is designed to awaken the palate, priming you for the richness to come. Next, the cena, the main course, unfolds with a dramatic flourish. Roasted meats, such as boar or lamb, come to the table accompanied by delicately spiced sauces and fresh bread, still warm from the oven. Vegetables, artichokes, asparagus, and broad beans are served simply, allowing their natural flavors to shine through. Throughout, servants move silently, attentive but unobtrusive, refilling wine and clearing plates with practiced efficiency. You hear the soft rustle of their sandals against stone floors, the occasional clatter of a serving dish, but mostly the room remains filled with the warm murmur of contented diners. Finally, the secunda mensa, the dessert course, presents a sweet epilogue: honey cakes dusted with poppy seeds, figs stuffed with nuts, and sweet wine poured generously to close the meal. You savor these lingering flavors as the music shifts to a slower, more contemplative tune. Beneath all this splendor lies a deeper truth, These feasts are an assertion of identity and control. In a world where social standing defines destiny, to dine well is to demonstrate not just wealth but education, refinement, and the capacity to navigate the complex webs of Roman society. As you recline back, wine warming your throat, you might smile at the thought that in many ways, the Roman banquet is an ancient form of storytelling. Each dish, each toast, each moment of shared laughter or serious debate threads together a narrative of power, pleasure, and human connection that echoes across the centuries. So, breathe in the rich, layered scents, listen to the soft symphony of voices and strings, feel the comfort of velvet cushions and the weight of history settling softly around you. Here, in the heart of Rome's aristocracy, you are invited to experience a feast not only for the body, but for the soul. And if you find yourself wondering whether the Romans ever felt overwhelmed by such extravagance, well, imagine trying to keep track of all the courses while reclining on your side, delicate wine cup in hand, and navigating the subtle politics of seating arrangements. Yes, even ancient banquets had their own kind of chaos hidden beneath the glamour. But for now, let the flickering lamps and the gentle music soothe you. Let the aromas and tastes drift like a soft cloud around your senses, and let yourself be carried away, one sumptuous bite at a time, into the world of the opulent Roman banquet. Picture yourself stepping into the bustling kitchen of a Roman aristocrat's home, where the air is thick with the mingled aromas of roasting meats, fragrant herbs, and something intriguingly unfamiliar. Here, amidst the clatter of pots and the hiss of open flames, the cooks are preparing dishes that might raise an eyebrow. Today, delicacies that seem part fantasy, part culinary curiosity. Let's start with something as flamboyant as it sounds: flamingo tongues. Yes, you heard that right. These bright pink birds weren't just admired for their elegant stance in the shallow waters, they were hunted for their tongues, prized as a rare and luxurious bite. Imagine the texture, tender yet slightly firm, with a delicate richness that lingers softly on the palate, infused with subtle herbs like lavish and pepper to balance its natural flavor. Now, imagine the preparation: flamingo tongues carefully plucked and cleaned, then gently boiled or braised in a fragrant sauce, sometimes served on a bed of spiced lentils or garlicky greens. The cooks handled these with the utmost care. After all, flamingo tongues were not your everyday fare. Their rarity alone made them a conversation piece, a showstopper at banquets, designed to impress guests with both wealth and daring. Moving from birds to something much smaller, let's tiptoe over to the famous dormouse. This tiny rodent might seem an unlikely candidate for the table, but to the Roman elite, stuffed dormice were the epitome of culinary extravagance. Picture a plump dormouse, carefully fattened on a diet of chestnuts and acorns, then delicately stuffed with minced pork, pepper, pine nuts, and sometimes even dormouse liver, double indulgence. The dormouse was then sewn up, roasted over an open flame until golden and crisp. Imagine biting into that crispy skin, giving way to a savory, spiced filling that somehow manages to be both rich and tender. Dormice were often served as a starter, little morsels meant to tease the appetite and flaunt the host's connections to exotic and carefully bred ingredients. As you settle deeper into this culinary exploration, your imagination might wander to the peacock, that proud bird with its iridescent tail spread wide in the gardens, a symbol of status and beauty. But on the Roman table, peacocks were more than decoration, they were a delicacy. Peacock brains, in particular, were highly sought after. Now, the idea of eating brains might make some hesitate, but the Romans regarded this as a true test of refinement. The brain's texture is soft and creamy, almost custard-like, flavored delicately with aromatic herbs, and sometimes dipped in honey or garum sauce to enhance its complex taste. Cooking peacock brains required skill. They were often simmered gently or baked in rich sauces, presented in ornate dishes to guests who understood the prestige of such a rare bite. You might wonder, what made these exotic and, at times, bizarre ingredients so appealing beyond their taste? The answer lies deeply rooted in Roman society's obsession with status and display. Serving flamingo tongues or stuffed dormice wasn't just about flavor, it was a performance of power and wealth. The more unusual and rare the ingredient, the clearer the message. I have access to the world's finest and strangest delights. These dishes were conversation starters, status symbols, and testaments to the empire's vast reach. Exotic spices arrived from distant lands like India and Arabia, while the birds and small animals came from carefully managed estates or imported specifically for feasts. Hosting such banquets meant demonstrating control over nature, trade, and culture, all at once. Beyond the shock value, these ingredients reflected a sophisticated palate cultivated over generations. Roman aristocrats prided themselves on experiencing tastes and textures that were unfamiliar, challenging, and above all, luxurious. The thrill of trying flamingo tongue or peacock brain was part of the enjoyment, a daring step into the unknown that marked you as worldly and bold. Now, let's paint a scene of these dishes arriving at the table. The servants move silently, bearing silver platters that catch the flickering candlelight. You lean in as the first dish is placed before you. Small dormice, golden and steaming, their savory aroma mingling with the rich wine swirling in your cup. You lift a morsel, feeling the crispness of the skin give way to a spiced interior, and take a slow, savoring bite. Next, a smaller plate arrives, with delicate slices of flamingo tongue, their rosy hue inviting curiosity. The flavors surprise you, earthy yet sweet, with a gentle bite tempered by the fragrant herbs. It's unlike anything you've tasted before, and you find yourself smiling at the thought of sharing this with your friends. An indulgence wrapped in mystery. Later, platter of peacock brains is set down with quiet ceremony. The texture is creamy, almost melting in your mouth, while the subtle sweetness of honey and pungency of garum dance together in a harmony you didn't expect. It's a reminder that food, for these Romans, was both art and adventure. The kitchen, behind these feasts, buzzes with a strange combination of meticulous precision and inventive flair. Cooks mix traditional Roman recipes with daring experiments, all under the watchful eyes of hosts who understand the power of gastronomy. Spices are measured by the pinch. Sauces are layered with care. Presentation matters as much as taste. These rare ingredients also often carried symbolic meaning. Flamingos, with their striking pink feathers, represented beauty and status. Dormice symbolized abundance and indulgence. Peacocks, long associated with immortality and grandeur, lent an air of majesty to the meal. Eating these foods was as much about participating in a shared cultural language as satisfying hunger. Imagine now the murmur of approval around the table, the low hum of delighted surprise at each new dish, the laughter, the raised glasses, and the occasional playful grimace as some guests dared to try flavors that teased their senses in unexpected ways. Each bite became a story, a memory etched in the minds of those present. And if you find yourself wondering how such delicate creatures made it to the table, the answer takes you on a journey through Roman agriculture, trade, and animal husbandry. Exotic birds were raised in elaborate aviaries, dormice bred in special pens, known as gloraria, where they were fattened to perfection, and peacocks carefully maintained in gardens, designed both for beauty and for culinary pleasure. This world of culinary curiosity was fueled by a desire not only to satiate but to astonish, to remind everyone that in Rome, luxury knew no bounds. And even now, imagining these flavors, you can almost taste the richness of history itself. So, as you breathe in the imagined sense of roasted dormice and spiced flamingo tongues, allow yourself to marvel at the creativity and boldness of these ancient meals. Picture the flickering oil lamps, the murmurs of admiration, and the quiet pride of a host who knows they have offered something truly unforgettable. Imagine yourself reclining comfortably in one of those grand Roman dining rooms, the triclinia, where plush cushions invite you to lean back and let the evening's indulgence unfold slowly. The air is thick with the warm aroma of roasted meats, fragrant herbs, and freshly baked bread. Soft voices murmur nearby, punctuated by the occasional gentle clink of silverware and wine glasses. It's here that the legendary vomitorium enters the scene, not as a place of ritual purging, but something quite different. The word vomitorium has traveled through history, often misunderstood. When you hear it today, your mind might leap to images of overindulgent Romans deliberately emptying their stomachs mid-feast to continue eating, a bizarre ritual of excess. But let's slow down and untangle this myth gently, as if we're sharing secrets by candlelight. First, the truth. A vomitorium wasn't a room to vomit in. In fact, it wasn't even a part of the dining area where guests would excuse themselves for such dramatic bodily functions. Instead, a vomitorium was an architectural feature in Roman theatres and amphitheatres, a series of passageways designed to allow crowds to spew forth quickly into or out of the seating areas. The Latin root vomere means to spew out, referring to the flow of people, not anything happening in the stomach. Now, you might chuckle a bit at how this word took on such a colorful and misleading life of its own. The idea of Romans piling on plates, then rushing off to vomit just to make room for more, is both amusing and a little bit, well, icky. But while it's not historically accurate, it does hint at the reputation Romans had for lavish, even excessive feasting. Picture again those spacious dining rooms, lit by flickering oil lamps casting a warm glow on frescoed walls. The air is fragrant with simmering sauces, roasted game, and the unmistakable scent of spiced wine. Guests recline on their couches, engaged in quiet conversation. The subtle rustling of togas and laughter, soft as the night outside. Some wealthy Romans did indulge extravagantly, no doubt about it. Banquets could stretch for hours, with multiple courses arriving one after another, delicacies that we've touched on before, like stuffed dormice and flamingo tongues. The host's goal was to impress, to display power and generosity through food. Yet even among this luxury, the notion of formal vomiting to continue eating is largely a later exaggeration. If anything, the Romans appreciated moderation in their banquets, at least in theory. Some medical writers of the time warned against overindulgence, and certain etiquette guides suggested pacing oneself. You wouldn't want to be the guest who couldn't keep up, or worse, embarrass themselves by showing discomfort, or worse, actual vomiting in front of company. Instead, guests might occasionally excuse themselves discreetly to a private corner or chamber, but more often to refresh themselves with a gentle walk or a splash of cool water. Imagine the soft murmur of conversations, the clink of delicate glassware, and the occasional rustle as a servant approaches with fresh platters. The pace is leisurely, designed to allow digestion and enjoyment rather than gluttony. Interestingly, there were indeed some Roman practices for cleansing the palate and aiding digestion that might sound familiar today. Herbs like fennel and coriander were chewed or brewed into teas. Spiced wines and garum fermented fish sauce helped stimulate appetite or refresh the mouth. These customs were part of the art of dining, much like a modern sommelier pairing wines. So, the idea that Romans had a dedicated room where they routinely emptied their stomachs to continue feasting, it's more of a myth born from misunderstanding and a pinch of fascination with Roman decadence. The truth is far less dramatic but no less fascinating. The vomitorium as a crowd-controlled passageway, and the banquet as a carefully choreographed social event, that as you imagine yourself there, reclined and relaxed, perhaps with a glass of rich Falernian wine in hand, the gentle sounds of a lyre or flute playing nearby. The layers of flavor, aroma, and conversation wrap around you like a soft cloak. It's a scene of sophisticated enjoyment, not of reckless excess. Of course, in any society, there are always exceptions. Some individuals may have indulged to the point of discomfort. Human nature hasn't changed much, but the Roman elite's banquets were as much about social display, poetry, recitation, and political maneuvering as they were about food. Feasting was theater, a delicate balance of pleasure and prestige. The architecture of these spaces, from the spacious triclinia to the clever vomitoria of the theaters, reveals a culture deeply invested in experience. Whether it was the smooth flow of guests, entering and exiting, or the artful progression of courses, every detail spoke to control, order, and grandeur. And so, as the evening winds down, you might find yourself smiling at the misinterpretations that followed this simple architectural term. What sounds like a grotesque indulgence is actually a testament to Roman ingenuity, social grace, and a rich culinary culture that still fascinates us today. Now, breathe in deeply, let the imagined sense of spiced wine and roasted delicacies linger in your mind, and feel the warmth of flickering lamps and whispered conversations surrounding you. This is the true atmosphere of Roman dining, in a world where food, culture, and architecture intertwined in an elegant dance far beyond the myths. Picture yourself reclining on a plush couch in a softly lit Roman triclinium, the warm glow of oil, lamps casting flickering shadows across the frescoed walls. The air hums with gentle conversation, the soft clatter of plates, and the occasional murmur of compliments as the feast begins to unfold in its full, splendid sequence. Your journey through the Roman banquet starts with the gustatio, the appetizer course. Imagine a delicate selection of foods laid out before you, each bursting with color and inviting aroma. There are fresh, honeyed figs glistening like tiny jewels, their sweet scent mingling with the herbal notes of rosemary and thyme sprinkled over roasted nuts. Crisp, salted olives provide a briny counterpoint, and there's an assortment of thinly sliced cured meats, perhaps delicately smoked ham, or a peppered sausage arranged with care on earthenware platters. The gustatio is light, designed to awaken your appetite without overwhelming it. The pace here is unhurried. You savor each bite while engaging in soft laughter and witty banter with your companions. Maybe a guest praises the sharpness of the aged cheese or the sweetness of the marinated grapes. You might even exchange a knowing smile with the host, who's pleased to see you enjoying these introductory delights. As the gustatio winds down, servants begin to clear the small plates with quiet efficiency, setting the stage for the main courses. Next comes the prima mensa, the main course, where the real culinary extravaganza takes center stage. Picture heavy platters heaped with roasted game pheasant with golden, crackling skin, wild boar glistening under a glaze of honey and herbs, and whole fish seasoned with exotic spices brought from the east. The aroma is intoxicating, smoky, savory, and rich, with a hint of cinnamon and pepper teasing the senses. You reach for a slice of tender venison, its flavor deep and satisfying, perfectly balanced by a tangy sauce made from fermented fish sauce, known as garum, a Roman staple. That might sound surprising, but was beloved for its umami punch. Around you, the chatter softens as guests focus on the sumptuous offerings, occasionally pausing to compliment the cook or comment on the intricate presentation. The textures delight youth, the crispness of crackling skin, the melting softness of slow-cooked meats, the delicate flakiness of fish fillets. Side dishes appear as well. Bowls of lentils stewed with herbs, roasted vegetables drizzled with olive oil, and freshly baked bread with a slightly crunchy crust and warm, fluffy interior. Each bite is a harmony of flavors and textures, designed to impress both palate and status. Between dishes, wine flows steadily, often diluted with water and infused with honey or spices, stimulating the appetite and conversation alike. The social dance continues, the exchange of compliments, the telling of anecdotes, the subtle display of etiquette as you delicately balance a grape between thumb and forefinger. After the main course, the meal transitions to the secunda mensa, the dessert and fruit course. Here the colors become softer and sweeter. Imagine platters piled high with figs and grapes glistening with morning dew, pomegranates bursting with jewel-like seeds, and slices of melon dripping with nectar. There are also spiced pastries, flaky and golden, dusted with honey and sprinkled with nuts, perhaps a honey-soaked cake infused with rosewater, teasing the tongue with delicate floral notes. Desserts were not merely an afterthought but a vital, anticipated conclusion to the feast. You might savor dates stuffed with almonds, or crisp wafers flavored with cumin and coriander. The taste lingers sweet but balanced, a gentle finale to the indulgent symphony of the meal. Throughout this last course, the atmosphere softens further. The wine now carries a warmer, more relaxed quality, as stories grow more intimate and laughter spills more freely. The guests recline deeper into their couches, eyes gleaming with contentment and the glow of conviviality. The rhythm of the meal is deliberate, a careful orchestration of food, drink, and social interaction. It's a dance as much as a dining experience, a way to display wealth, cultivate alliances, and enjoy the finer things in life. You might chuckle quietly to yourself at the occasional over-enthusiastic guest who has perhaps pushed the limits of indulgence a bit too far. In these moments, a gentle reminder of restraint might be in order after all. The night is long, and no one wants to be the one discreetly excused for a walk to clear the head. And so, as the final platters are cleared, and the last sips of wine savored, the feast leaves you with a deep sense of satisfaction, not just from the food, but from the shared experience, the gentle ebb and flow of conversation, the warmth of companionship, and the subtle art of Roman hospitality at its finest. Imagine stepping into a grand Roman triclinium, the dining room designed not just for eating, but for social theater, carefully arranged space where every cushion, every marble table edge, speaks volumes about status, power, and the subtle dance of etiquette. The air carries a delicate blend of fragrant oils, roasted meats, and the faint musk of worn cushions, inviting you to settle in and become part of this ancient ritual. At the heart of the room, 3 plush couches, softly upholstered and curved, in a U-shape await their guests. These aren't just any couches, they are the stage for one of the most telling customs in Roman dining, reclining while you eat. Unlike our upright modern chairs, the Romans reclined on their left side, propped up on one elbow, the right hand free to eat, drink, and gesture with graceful ease. The act itself was a statement comfort blended with sophistication, a signal of leisure and status. But not everyone earned the right to recline. This was a privilege reserved for freeborn men and women of certain standing. Slaves and lower classes ate seated or standing, sometimes in separate areas. As you ease yourself onto one of these couches, you notice the rich tapestry woven into the cushions beneath deep reds, blues, and golds, offering a soft contrast to the cool marble floor. The cushions, while plush, require a bit of getting used to. Balancing a plate and a wine cup while reclining isn't exactly a modern ergonomic design. You learn quickly that eating gracefully in this position takes practice, a careful dance of timing bites and sipping wine without dribbling or fumbling. It's almost like the ancient version of a delicate yoga pose, though with more food involved. The seating arrangement itself is a nuanced affair. The host occupies the central spot of the middle couch, known as the locus consularis, the seat of honor. To their immediate right sits the guest of highest importance, a placement that quietly communicates influence and respect. The remaining guests are positioned according to their social rank and relationship to the host, forming a living hierarchy cushioned in velvet and velvet soft tension. As you glance around, you see subtle signs of competition and conversation, choreography. Who will speak first? Who commands the most attention with a well-timed story or a witty remark? Guests vie to catch the host's eye, to lean in just so, or to laugh at a joke with perfect timing. This is less about the food on your plate and more about the currency of presence and poise. Between bites, you notice the practiced ease with which hands reach for delicate morsels, thin slices of meat, olives, or soft cheese, passing them effortlessly across low tables of polished marble. The clink of glassware and soft laughter create a gentle rhythm, a background music to the dance of dining. There's an unspoken etiquette about speech, too. Loud voices are frowned upon. Subtlety and charm rule the conversation. The ideal guest is attentive but not intrusive, witty but not boastful. In fact, a certain kind of eloquence was prized, a way of speaking that felt effortless, as if the words flowed naturally from the very air you breathed. You might chuckle softly to yourself, imagining how challenging it must have been to maintain this composed grace after several courses and generous cups of wine. The art of reclining while keeping a straight back, avoiding spills, and making intelligent conversation without a hiccup sounds like a full-time job. And in a way, it was. But more than mere formality, these customs reinforced social bonds and hierarchies. The order of serving, who ate first, and who was waited on most attentively, were all signals, quiet affirmations of respect, alliance, or sometimes rivalry. Behind this polite veneer, you sense the occasional flash of subtle power. Plays a glance held too long, a toast slightly misdirected, a compliment wrapped in just enough ambiguity to leave everyone guessing. Dining was, after all, a battlefield where words could be sharper than swords, and a well-placed gesture might influence politics as much as any Senate meeting. The triclinium itself is a marvel of design, its frescoed walls telling stories of myth and conquest, its marble surfaces cool beneath your fingers, and its lamps casting a gentle, flickering light that makes the room feel like a cozy, timeless cocoon. Outside, the hum of the city fades into a distant murmur, leaving you enveloped in this intimate world of soft cushions, rich scents, and the low murmur of cultivated conversation. In this suspended moment, reclining in a room alive with history and subtle human drama. You appreciate how the simple act of sharing a meal can become a profound ritual, one that feeds not just the body, but the complex web of relationships, respect, and rivalry that defined Roman aristocratic life. And as you rest back on your elbow, perhaps you allow a small, amused smile at the thought of trying to keep your toga pristine while navigating a slippery olive or a particularly juicy fig bee, because even in the most refined settings, a little messiness is part of the human story. You find yourself once again in a bustling Roman kitchen, where the air is alive with a symphony of aromas, some comforting, some boldly challenging your senses. The heart of this fragrant orchestra is garum, the ancient Roman elixir, a pungent fermented fish sauce that was the secret behind many dishes. As the scent wafts around you, salty, sharp, unmistakably fishy, it's easy to understand why garum was both loved and feared. A flavor that could surprise even the most seasoned modern nose. Garum wasn't just any condiment. It was a culinary superstar, revered across the empire, produced by fermenting small fish in salt for months under the Mediterranean sun. It was then carefully strained into a golden liquid that looked almost like liquid sunshine. Think of it as the ketchup or soy sauce of ancient Rome, used generously to elevate the simplest stew or the grandest banquet dish. The bubbling pots nearby hint at the alchemy of Roman cooking. You can almost hear the soft hiss of garum simmering, alongside herbs and meats, blending into a complex flavor profile that was both intensely savory and deeply satisfying. The kitchen staff chats softly in the background, discussing the best garum from distant province, some prized for their sharpness, others for their subtlety. Your attention is drawn to the array of spices spread out on a wooden table, bright saffron threads from Persia, fiery black pepper from India, and aromatic cumin from the eastern Mediterranean. Each one carries its own story, a whisper of far-off lands brought to Rome by merchants who navigated vast trade routes. These spices weren't mere flavorings, they were symbols of status and wealth, a way for Roman aristocrats to showcase their connections to the wider world. As you inhale deeply, the scent of these exotic spices mingles with the garum's salty punch. It's a complex dance of flavors, earthy, spicy, sweet, and pungent, all layered carefully to create dishes that tantalize the palate and impress the guests. Imagine a roast game bird, its skin crisped to a golden brown, brushed with a glaze made from honey, black pepper, and a generous splash of garum. The combination might seem daring, even odd, but it was the height of sophistication. Interestingly, garum's intensity could be a bit of a shock for the uninitiated. Picture a modern diner encountering this sauce for the first time, their nose crinkling at the bold aroma, only to find the taste surprisingly addictive, a savory umami bomb that transformed the meal. Romans had a saying, "Where there is garum, there is flavor," which tells you just how indispensable it was. Behind these flavor sensations lies a fascinating network of trade and cultural cashiage. Roman merchants and traders traveled across the Mediterranean, from North Africa to Spain, from the Near East to the far reaches of Gaul, bringing back not only spices and sauces, but ideas, recipes, and culinary techniques. Each jar of garum and each sack of exotic pepper tells a story of these connections, turning the Roman table into a global crossroads. Long before globalization was a thing, you might find yourself imagining the bustling docks where crates of spices were unloaded, the haggling of merchants, and the carefully guarded recipes passed from cook to cook in grand Roman villas. These ingredients were precious, often costly, and reserved for those who could afford the finest tastes. As the kitchen bustles with activity, you notice the gentle simmering of other sauces, reductions infused with herbs like coriander, lavish, and dill, alongside freshly crushed garlic and sharp vinegar. The scent of roasted cumin seeds roasting in a pan adds a warm, nutty note to the air, inviting you closer. Even the simplest street food in Rome wasn't without flavor. Vendors might drizzle garum over fried fish or sprinkle pepper over a warm loaf of bread, adding layers of taste that delighted passers-by. In the aristocratic kitchens, however, these flavors were elevated, combined with luxurious ingredients like dates, figs, and nuts, transforming humble components into sumptuous dishes. Reflecting on all this, it's clear how much Roman cuisine was about the art of balancing flavor, salty with sweet, sharp with mellow, exotic with familiar. The use of spices and sauces was both an expression of creativity and a statement of power, revealing the empire's reach and the refined tastes of its elite. As you settle into this sensory-rich world, you might smile softly at the thought of modern palates meeting these ancient tastes, wondering which flavors you'd embrace and which might give you pause. After all, flavor is deeply personal, and the Romans' boldness in seasoning was part of their enduring legacy. You settle comfortably into the warm, inviting atmosphere of a Roman aristocratic convivium, a gathering where wine flows freely and laughter dances through the air like soft music. The room is softly lit by flickering oil lamps, their golden glow casting playful shadows on the painted walls and polished marble surfaces. Around you, guests recline leisurely on cushioned couches, their voices mingling in easy conversation, punctuated by bursts of spirited laughter. Wine here is not just a drink, it's a ritual, a social glue binding friends and allies together in moments of shared pleasure and camaraderie. But unlike modern sipping, Roman wine culture has its own fascinating customs. Starting with the essential practice of dilution, you might be surprised to learn that drinking undiluted wine was often frowned upon. It was considered too strong, even barbaric. So, in fine Roman style, wine was typically mixed with water, sometimes at a ratio of 3 parts water to 1 part wine, creating a balanced, refreshing blend that was both polite and palatable. As you take a slow breath, imagine the subtle aroma of the wine itself, notes of ripe berries, the earthiness of the vineyard, and a faint hint of herbs used. In the fermentation process, the wine's color shifts in the light, from deep garnet to a soft amber, inviting you to taste its complexity. Each sip brings a smooth, slightly tart flavor, tempered by the water to a gentle warmth that encourages conversation and relaxation. Beyond the simple enjoyment of wine, these gatherings often feature lively drinking games that add a playful edge to the evening. Picture a group of friends leaning forward with eager eyes, cups raised in anticipation of the next challenge. One popular game might involve guessing the number of beans dropped into a cup, or reciting a line of poetry flawlessly before taking a sip. The games are a test of wit and memory, but also a way to keep spirits high and prevent the evening from becoming too formal or dull. Speaking of poetry, it's not unusual for a guest to raise their cup in a toast, their voice ringing clear as they recite a carefully crafted verse celebrating friendship, love, or even the gods. These toasts, called libations, honor tradition and express goodwill, often accompanied by gestures of lifting the cup toward the sky or toward a friend. The words float gently over the room, mingling with the soft clatter of goblets and murmured, salve greetings, creating an atmosphere both refined and intimate. You might smile at the thought of some of these gatherings taking a slightly more mischievous turn. As the wine loosens tongues and lowers inhibitions, playful banter escalates, and friendly dares might be issued. Perhaps a poet is challenged to compose an impromptu ode, or a guest attempts a dramatic reading that ends in stifled giggles. Even the most dignified hosts occasionally succumb to the silliness sparked by a well-timed jest or a slightly too generous pour. Interestingly, the wine itself was often flavored or spiced to suit different tastes. Some vintners added honey or herbs like rosemary and mint, creating subtle variations that delighted the palate. Imagine the kitchen staff carefully preparing these blends, their pots bubbling with fragrant infusions that fill the air with a soothing, almost hypnotic aroma. The social dynamics around the wine are just as rich as the flavors. Seating arrangements, and who poured for whom reflected status and favor. Being invited to pour wine for the host, or to propose a toast, was a sign of trust and respect. Meanwhile, guests were expected to know their limits not just for decorum, but also because Roman physicians cautioned against overindulgence, believing balance was key to both health and happiness. As the evening deepens, the tone softens into a gentle rhythm. The clinking of goblets becomes a comforting soundtrack, paired with the occasional rustle of robes and the faint crackle of nearby lamps. You can almost feel the warmth of friendship and the subtle power of tradition, weaving a tapestry that is as much about connection as it is about the wine. And yet, beneath all the revelry, there is a sophisticated appreciation for the art of winemaking itself. Roman vineyards, sprawling across hillsides bathed in Mediterranean sun, were meticulously tended by skilled hands. From careful pruning to the timing of the harvest, every step influenced the character of the final product. Even the choice of amphorae, those distinctive clay jars, used for storage and transport, played a role in preserving the wine's delicate flavors. Imagine yourself wandering through these vineyards, the soft breeze carrying the scent of grapevines and wildflowers, the earth warm beneath your feet. This connection to the land, to nature's rhythms, is part of what made Roman wine so special, not just a drink, but a symbol of heritage, patience, and celebration. Back in the convivium, the night carries on with stories shared and friendships deepened over every poured cup. The ritual of wine is a dance, sometimes graceful, sometimes exuberant, that unites all present in a moment suspended between history and joy. You settle deeper into your cushioned seat, the faint clink of your wine cup echoing softly in the expansive dining room, where light from flickering oil lamps plays against rich tapestries and polished marble. Around you, the hum of quiet conversations and the delicate scrape of silver utensils create a backdrop of refined opulence. But beneath this graceful surface, there's something more at work, a subtle dance of power, influence, and ambition woven through every course and every whispered word. Imagine yourself in the shoes of a Roman patron, a wealthy aristocrat eager to showcase not just culinary taste, but social standing. The grand feast you host is more than a gathering, it's a carefully staged performance, a display of wealth that signals your place in the complex hierarchy of Roman society. Each dish sent out from the kitchens is a carefully chosen statement, each goblet of wine an invitation to favor. The air is rich with the scent of roasted meats and exotic spices, but your attention drifts to the guests, an assortment of senators, merchants, poets, and foreign dignitaries, reclining on plush couches arranged to highlight status and favor. The room seems to pulse with the unspoken rules of engagement, who sits beside whom, who speaks first, and the deliberate timing of compliments and requests. As you sip your wine, your eyes catch a glance exchanged between two guests across the room. It's brief, almost imperceptible, but loaded with meaning. Perhaps it's a silent agreement, a recognition of mutual advantage, or a veiled warning. These are the moments where alliances are formed and rivalries simmer just beneath polite smiles. Picture the host leaning slightly closer to a favorite guest, lowering their voice to a conspiratorial whisper, while the others are distracted by a lively musical interlude. You can almost hear the hush of secrecy mixed with the faint rustling of fine robes as delicate hands gesture toward an unseen document or a hidden promise. Roman feasts were famously extravagant, but their true value lay in these social negotiations. Hosting a lavish banquet was a way to demonstrate not just wealth, but influence, the ability to gather the right people, to command attention, and to shape decisions behind the veneer of conviviality. Invitations were prized, refusals could offend, and attendance was a currency of political favor. The structure of the room itself reflected this power play. Seating arrangements, called the ordo, were carefully planned, with the most important guests placed near the host's right hand, a place of honor. Your position in this social geometry sent a clear message to all. This is where you stand in the grand scheme. You might notice a subtle shift in tone when the courses change, as conversations take on a more serious note. Perhaps a senator discreetly presses an issue, or a merchant hints at a lucrative opportunity. The food continues to arrive, each platter more sumptuous than the last. But the real nourishment here is the information shared in these intimate exchanges. Even the seemingly casual toasts carry weight. Raising a glass might be a simple gesture of goodwill, but also a subtle assertion of loyalty or a carefully veiled challenge. The poetry woven into these moments can flatter, persuade, or remind others of past favors and future expectations. Amid all this, you feel the quiet tension of competition. Who will outshine whom? Who will secure a coveted alliance? Who will leave the table with new promises whispered and old grievances buried for now? The feast is a stage, and everyone plays their part with practiced skill. Yet, it's not all solemn intrigue. The atmosphere still holds space for light-heartedness, witty remarks, playful banter, and the occasional shared joke that eases the strain of political maneuvering. This blend of formality and informality keeps the evening flowing, allowing relationships to deepen naturally amid the spectacle. You might wonder how the host manages such a delicate balance, welcoming all, favoring some, and never revealing too much. It takes a keen mind and a practiced grace, qualities that mark a true master of Roman social life. Your own role, whether as host or guest, is to read these signals, respond with tact, and perhaps to gently guide the currents of influence swirling around you. The kitchen buzzes softly in the background, a reminder that beneath all this subtlety lies the simple joy of shared nourishment. The aroma of fresh bread, roasted game, and honeyed fruits grounds the feast in tangible pleasure, even as minds engage in the more intangible art of power. As the evening winds on, you find yourself drawn deeper into this world, a place where food and drink are tools, where every gesture carries meaning, and where the boundaries between friendship and strategy blur into a delicate dance. Imagine the soft clatter of dishes being cleared away, the murmured agreements settling like a gentle haze, and the lingering warmth of wine and whispered promises filling the air. Here, in this intimate setting, the politics of Rome unfold not in grand halls or senate chambers, but at the dining table, where power is tasted, savored, and sometimes quietly claimed. You slip quietly away from the soft glow of the dining room, where laughter and the clinking of wine cups fill the air, and step into the heart of the household, the bustling kitchens that fuel the lavish Roman feast. Here, the world feels different, warmer, noisier, alive with movement and the sharp scent of spices and smoke. Imagine the coarse linen uniforms of the slaves and servants brushing against your skin as you weave between sturdy wooden tables, laden with ingredients. The sharp crackle of cooking fires warms the air, mingling with the fragrant perfume of rosemary, garlic, and bay leaves simmering in heavy pots. The heat from the ovens presses gently against your face, while the steady rhythm of chopping knives and clattering pottery forms a kind of chaotic harmony in this space behind the scenes. You witness a different kind of energy, quiet, focused, and essential. These are the hands and hearts that transform raw ingredients into the exotic delicacies and sumptuous courses gracing the tables upstairs. Without their skill and labor, the grandeur of the feast would dissolve into mere empty promises. Picture the cooks, their brows damp with sweat but faces set in concentration, carefully balancing flavors learned through tradition and practice. There's a sense of pride here, too, knowing that their expertise can coax honeyed figs to sweetness or tame the briny sharpness of garum into something surprisingly delicate. Whispered orders float through the kitchen like secrets, voices low but urgent. More pepper, one calls, and check the dormice, they must be golden. There's a rhythm to their work, an unspoken understanding among the team that every moment counts in bringing perfection to the table. Despite the hectic pace, moments of quiet connection emerge, an exchanged glance, a shared smile when a dish turns out just right, or a brief respite near the cooling embers. These small gestures hint at a community woven together by shared purpose. Even under the weight of unrelenting demands, it's easy to forget, though, that these skilled workers live in a world apart from the guests they serve. Slaves, often born into servitude or captured far from Rome, navigate a life of constrained freedom. Their labor, indispensable yet invisible, sustains the luxurious lifestyle of the elite. You might imagine the rough texture of their worn sandals on dusty stone floors, the heavy weight of water jars carried across the courtyard, or the chill of early mornings spent stoking fires before dawn. Their stories are layered with resilience and quiet endurance, balancing the harsh realities of their status with the dignity of their craft. The kitchen also buzzes with practical challenges, managing fires so fierce they could scorch the delicate spices, timing the roasting of game so it emerges tender and golden, and keeping the variety of dishes flowing in seamless succession. Every element is a careful choreography demanding expertise and care. The scent of fresh bread baking in stone ovens drifts through the corridors, mingling with the sweeter notes of mulled wine being warmed for the feast. Herbs plucked from garden, bedsage, thyme, mint are crushed and stirred, their vibrant fragrances a subtle reminder of nature's gifts amid the stone and marble of the villa. In quieter corners, you might glimpse the servants sharing whispered stories, offering each other small comforts amid the relentless pace. There's humor too, a joke exchanged over a spilled sauce, or the surprise of a guest's unexpected request. These moments humanize a world often seen only through the lens of wealth and excess. As the banquet hour approaches, the servants ready themselves to move like shadows through the dining room, carrying silver platters heavy with roasted peacock or delicate pastries filled with spiced honey. Their movements are swift but graceful, practiced to perfection to avoid drawing attention to the effort behind the splendor. Though their names may never be recorded in history, their presence is felt in every bite savored and every satisfied sigh. They are the silent backbone of Roman aristocratic dining, embodying a paradox of invisibility and indispensacy. So as you relax back into the gentle comfort of your imagined space, take a moment to honor these unseen artists of the feast, slaves and servants whose hands and hearts crafted the sensory wonders that defined ancient Roman luxury. The evening deepens, and the rhythm of the kitchen shifts subtly. Flames flicker lower, casting long shadows that dance across the rough stone walls. You hear the soft murmur of exhausted voices, a mix of relief and anticipation. The work is almost done, the feast soon to begin. Imagine the scent of herbs mingling with the lingering smoke, the warmth of the hearth embracing the room like a familiar cloak. Trays once brimming with vibrant ingredients now carry the finishing touches: jars of sweet honey, bowls of crushed nuts, and delicate bundles of fresh herbs poised to crown the dishes. You notice the hands, calloused yet deft, as they carefully arrange the final garnishes. Fingers dusted with flour trace gentle patterns on pastries, while another gently lifts a roasted dormouse, placing it with quiet reverence among other rare delicacies. There's a reverence here, an unspoken respect for the culinary traditions, passed down through generations, even if those traditions belong to a society steeped in hierarchy and disparity. In these moments, the kitchen feels less like a place of labor and more like a sanctuary, a crucible where art and necessity meet. It's a world apart from the opulence above, but no less vital, no less alive. As the first courses are carried upstairs, the servants pause briefly, exchanging knowing glances and tired smiles. They share a brief respite before the cycle begins, anew clearing plates, preparing for the next wave of dishes, tending to the endless demands of the banquet. You can almost feel the weight of their days, the endless repetition punctuated by moments of unexpected grace. The heavy linen uniforms soaked with sweat, the soot smeared on faces, the aching muscles from hours spent tending fires and hauling water, all balanced against the pride of sustaining a tradition that defined an era. And yet, beneath this tireless service, a quiet humanity pulses, a network of relationships, hopes, and small acts of kindness that flicker like candlelight in the darkness. It's a reminder that behind the grandeur of the Roman feast lay countless individuals whose stories remained largely untold. Their hands shaped history, their efforts seasoned the very essence of ancient luxury, even as their voices faded into the shadows. So as you settle deeper into this moment of calm reflection, breathe in the aroma of rosemary and roasting meats, listen to the soft echoes of footsteps on worn stone, and carry with you a gentle appreciation for those who lived and labored behind the scenes, zen yet indispensable. The meal slows, the last bites savored and glasses refilled. You notice the flickering torches casting soft, golden light across the room, shadows weaving gently on walls adorned with intricate frescoes and rich tapestries. The air, still thick with the mingling aromas of roasted meats, honeyed fruits, and exotic spices, now carries an expectant hush, delicate pause before the feast's transition into celebration. At the center of this shift lies ritual, a thread weaving through every Roman banquet, binding the guests to tradition, to the divine, and to one another. Imagine the low, steady murmur of prayers, soft chorus, lifted in unison, voices dipping and rising like the gentle tides. These blessings, often addressed to gods like Bacchus, the god of wine, or Ceres, the goddess of grain and agriculture, seek favor and protection. The host raises a cup, pouring libations, thin streams of wine or oil onto the ground, or an altar, honoring those unseen presences that watch over the gathering. The clink of goblets punctuates the moment, a communal echo of gratitude and hope, as each guest, reclining on their plush couches, joins the silent chorus of thanks. The sensation is intimate, even sacred, an acknowledgement that these grand feasts are more than mere indulgence. They are a communion of sorts, a dance between mortal delight and divine grace. As the final prayers fade, the atmosphere shifts once more. The flickering torchlight grows livelier, casting playful glimmers on silverware and polished marble. The murmurs rise into soft laughter, and from the shadows, figures emerge: musicians tuning lyres, poets adjusting scrolls, dancers stretching limbs. Picture the scene: a slender harpist plucks strings that shimmer like water under moonlight. A flute whispers melodies that swirl through the room, while a chorus of voices hums harmonies, setting the rhythm for what is to come. And then, with a sudden burst of energy, dancers take the floor. Their movements are fluid yet deliberate, telling stories through graceful gestures and lively footwork. Some twirl in colorful fabrics that catch the light, others perform acrobatic feats that draw gasps of admiration and occasional amused claps. You might catch yourself smiling at the sheer theatricality of it all. The entertainers of Rome often leaned into dramatic flair, sometimes a bit over the top, perhaps, but it was all part of the spectacle, the joy, the release after the structured formality of the meal itself. Between performances, a poet might step forward, reciting verses that range from the deeply philosophical to the humorously bawdy. Their words ripple through the room, sparking reflection or sparking cheeky grins. The banter between guests and performers creates a warm, inclusive atmosphere, as though everyone is part of a grand story unfolding in real time. The progression from dining to entertainment wasn't merely for amusement. It carried deeper celebration of culture, intellect, and social bonds. These moments reinforced hierarchies and alliances, offering opportunities for subtle exchanges beneath the veneer of merriment. Imagine how, amid this lively interplay, a whispered compliment or a shared joke might seal an alliance, or how a carefully delivered poem might sway opinions more than any speech. The Roman banquet was as much a stage for power as it was a place for pleasure. Throughout, the senses remain engaged: the flicker of torchlight, the warmth of the wine still lingering on your tongue, the scent of perfumed oils mingling with incense smoke. The soft rustle of silk robes accompanies the graceful arcs of dancers, and the gentle pulse of music threads through it all like an invisible current. In these moments, you feel both the extravagance and the intimacy of the Roman feast, a world where every gesture, every note, every shared glance carries meaning beyond the surface. So as you rest in this warm glow of culture and celebration, allow yourself to drift with the melodies, to savor the stories told, not only in words but in movement, music, and light. The banquet continues, a timeless dance between indulgence and ritual, between human connection and divine homage. As the music swells softly around you, imagine the subtle clatter of delicate bronze cymbals, or the faint tapping of fingers on wooden tambourines, weaving a rhythm that beckons movement and lightheartedness. The entertainers shift seamlessly from one act to another, their presence fluid and captivating, inviting guests to forget the weight of politics and prestige. At least for a while, you might catch the occasional whispered critiques and finding the singer's voice a touch too sharp, or the dancer's steps a little too wild. But even these murmurs carry a playful edge, part of the delicate social dance that fills these evenings. Here, entertainment isn't just background noise, it's a carefully curated experience, a vital thread in the fabric of Roman elite culture. The entertainers themselves hold a curious place in this world. Often slaves or freed people trained from youth, their skill and artistry could earn them favor, sometimes even freedom. Their performances could be the difference between a tense banquet and one that lingers in memory like a sweet aftertaste. You sense the mutual dependence, the guests needing delight, the performers needing patronage. Now, as the night deepens, imagine the torches dimming slightly, replaced by smaller oil lamps whose flickering flames create pools of amber light. The room feels cozier, more intimate, and the pace slows. Conversation deepens, turning toward philosophy, poetry, or shared stories of conquest and loss. The transition from lively spectacle to reflective dialogue mirrors the complexity of these gatherings: part celebration, part political theater, part human connection. The aroma of perfumed oils, perhaps jasmine or myrrh, mingles with the fading scent of roasted meats and fresh herbs, wrapping the space in a fragrant embrace. You might feel the softness of cushions beneath you, the smooth curve of a wine cup warming in your hand, grounding you in this ancient moment. And then, a moment of quieter, collective breath, held as a favored guest stands to offer a toast. The words, carefully chosen, honor not only the host, but the gods, the city, and the bonds that hold society together. Their voice rises and falls with measured grace, drawing the room into a shared sense of purpose and belonging. As the toast ends, gentle applause ripples through the space, mingling with the soft clinking of goblets. The night unfolds still further, with smaller groups breaking off to exchange confidences or share private jokes. You can almost hear the subtle undercurrents of alliance building, the balancing acts of favor and rivalry played out beneath the convivial surface. In these moments, the banquet reveals itself as a world apart, a microcosm of Roman society, where food, drink, ritual, and entertainment intertwine to sustain not just the body but the very structures of power and identity. So, resting here with the echoes of lyres and laughter around you, let yourself drift in this timeless blend of luxury and ritual. The strange, beautiful world of the Roman feast continues its dance, inviting you to listen closely to the music, the stories, and the quiet magic of connection. You settle deeper into the soft cushions as the banquet winds down, and a different atmosphere begins to settle over the room, one marked not by lively music or spirited conversation, but by a gentle heaviness that seems to seep into the very air. The flickering torchlight casts long shadows, and you can almost hear the slow, synchronized sighs of guests reclining a little too deeply, their bodies weighed down by the sheer volume of indulgence. Picture the scene: richly dressed aristocrats, leaning back on their couches, faces flushed from wine and food, some rubbing their bellies with contentment, others with a touch of discomfort. The sounds shift from clinking goblets and laughter to soft groans and murmured complaints about the overabundance they willingly invited. The feast, which began as a dazzling celebration of wealth and status, now reveals a quieter, more complex side. Overindulgence wasn't just accepted, it was often expected, a sign of prosperity and influence. Yet beneath the surface, it carried consequences: health struggles whispered about behind closed doors, subtle signs of fatigue masked by practiced smiles. You might imagine a noblewoman discreetly loosening the laces of her gown, or a senator quietly excusing himself from the room, seeking a moment of relief from the heaviness pressing on his chest. The sumptuous foods that delighted the senses now feel like a slow-moving tide, overwhelming even the strongest. It's said some guests would pause between courses to sip on mixtures meant to aid digestion, herbal concoctions, often bitter, designed to soothe the overworked stomach. Still, the cycle would continue: more food, more wine, the endless pursuit of excess as both pleasure and performance. In this stillness, there's a peculiar kind of rhythm, the pause between courses replaced by the pause between breaths, the festive noise softened into murmurs, the flicker of torchlight on glistening skin, the gentle clatter of empty plates set aside, the faint rustle of togas adjusted to ease the pressure of fullness. But beyond the immediate discomfort lay more serious effects. Ancient physicians, often consulted by the elite, warned of the dangers of such feasting. Overeating could lead to lethargy, digestive troubles, and even more severe ailments. Yet these warnings often mingled with advice on balancing excess with exercise or fasting. As part of the complex dance of Roman health culture, you might find it curious how, despite the risks, the pursuit of lavish feasting endured, tied deeply to identity and societal expectations. To decline the abundance was almost unthinkably rejection, not just of food, but of power and place. Still, moments of humor would surface even here: a witty remark about the battle between the belly and the brain, or an amused observation about a guest's heroic struggle to rise from the couch without a dramatic groan. Such lightness served as balm amid the physical toll, a reminder that these were human moments, not just grand displays. Imagine the servants moving quietly through the room, clearing plates with practiced efficiency, their presence steady and unobtrusive amidst the lingering effects of excess, their footsteps soft against mosaic floors, the subtle clink of bowls and utensils, a soothing backdrop to the slow recovery taking place. As you breathe in the fading sense of rich sauces and spiced meats, There's a gentle invitation to reflect with judgment, but with a calm understanding of the complex relationship between indulgence and consequence. The Roman aristocratic feast was a world of paradox, lavish abundance paired with quiet suffering, celebration shadowed by restraint, joy tempered by awareness. It's a reminder that even the grandest pleasures carry their own price, and that balance is a timeless pursuit. So here you rest, surrounded by the echoes of feasting and the soft, rhythmic sighs of bodies recovering, invited to simply be present. In this moment, a moment suspended between excess and ease, between history and humanity, that as the evening stretches on, the effects of overindulgence ripple through the room like a slow-moving tide. You can almost feel the weight of the feast settling on every guest, that peculiar blend of satisfaction and weariness that only comes from truly pushing the limits of appetite. The silk cushions that once cradled lively banter now support weary forms, some slipping into quiet naps, others engaged in muted conversations, their voices softer, slowed by fullness. Imagine the glint of oil lamps casting a warm, golden glow on faces flushed from wine, the once crisp linens now slightly rumpled, the fine aromas of spices and roasted meats fading into a gentle, lingering scent that clings to the air like a memory. The clinking of glasses has quieted, replaced by the occasional scrape of a chair or the delicate murmur of servants moving with grace and discretion. There's a strange comfort here, in this lull, a collective pause that invites reflection on the complexities of such excess. The lavish banquets, while symbols of power and wealth, were also stages for subtle battles between desire and discipline, indulgence and restraint, showmanship and sincerity. You might find yourself wondering how guests managed the delicate art of enjoying so much without completely losing themselves to it. Some would master the practice of vomiting, not the theatrical episodes often joked about, but rather discreetly excusing themselves to ease their discomfort, a taboo, yet practical aspect of Roman dining culture. Yet, even this was surrounded by ambiguity, blending rumor, myth, and fact into the rich tapestry of stories that survive. Health was a topic whispered about behind ornate screens, physicians advising moderation, philosophers preaching balance, but all too often their words drowned out by the clamor of desire and competition. The image of the robust Roman aristocrat sometimes masked the fragility beneath, the hidden toll of relentless feasting. Picture to the servants, ever present yet invisible, their hands swift and sure, clearing plates and replenishing wine, their faces betraying nothing as they navigated the grand dining halls with practiced ease, their lives intertwined with these moments of luxury, even as they remained distant from the pleasures enjoyed. In these quieter moments, you might catch snippets of conversation, jokes about a senator's inability to stand after the third course, or a poet's lament about inspiration dampened by too much wine. The humor, gentle and human, lightens the atmosphere, reminding everyone that even amid opulence, life carried its familiar rhythms, and as the last flickers of torchlight dance against the marble walls, you're invited to settle alongside these ancient revelers, feeling the pulse of a culture that reveled in abundance but understood, perhaps only too late, the costs it carried. So breathe deeply, let the richness of these moments wash over you, and rest in the knowledge that even the grandest feasts leave room for quiet reflection and gentle understanding. You step into the heart of a Roman aristocrat's home, the triclinium, the very stage of social dining. Imagine the space as a carefully choreographed setting, where architecture and atmosphere blend to create an experience as much about connection as consumption. The marble floor cools your feet, smooth and polished, a tactile reminder of luxury and permanence beneath your steps. Ahead, 3 couches, the famous lecti, are arranged in a U-shape around a low dining table, their cushions plump and inviting. These aren't just any couches, they're the epicenter of Roman feasting culture. Reclining here was an art form, signaling status and leisure, though you might imagine the occasional struggle to elegantly balance a plate or a goblet while half lying down. It's an amusing mental image, graceful dinners interrupted by the clumsy shuffle of a misplaced limb or a wayward olive rolling onto the floor. The walls are a canvas of vibrant frescoes, scenes bursting with color, mythological tales, lush gardens, and banquets themselves, perhaps a subtle nod to the guests about the pleasures they are about to enjoy. These paintings don't just decorate, they transport you, expanding the space and immersing you in stories and ideals cherished by the household. There's a gentle hum in the air, the flicker of oil lamps casting soft, dancing shadows across the frescoed walls, the faint rustle of fine fabrics as servants move discreetly to attend the needs of diners. The air carries delicate fragrances, fresh flowers from the adjoining courtyard, mingling with the earthy scent of polished stone and the subtle aroma of herbs brought in from the kitchen. Speaking of courtyards, many triclinia open onto garden spaces, tranquil, green refuges where guests might wander between courses, their footsteps muffled by moss and grass. Imagine jasmine and roses scenting the air, the soft trickle of a fountain providing a calming soundtrack beneath the occasional murmur of conversation. This blending of indoors and outdoors was a deliberate choice, a way to extend the feast, beyond mere eating, into an experience of sensory delight and social ease. The design of these rooms reflects a deep understanding of human interaction. The arrangement of couches encourages conversation, with each guest facing two others, fostering an intimate yet dynamic setting. Positioning was no accident. The most honored guest, or conviva, took the prime spot, a subtle power play that could set the tone for the entire evening. You might chuckle imagining the little challenges this setup created. Reclining on a couch while trying to eat gracefully requires a bit of dexterity. It's easy to picture a playful nudge as someone reaches for a dish just out of reach, or a shared glance when a wine cup wobbles precariously close to spilling. These moments of human imperfection make the grand rituals feel more approachable, more alive. Beneath the triclinium, the architecture continues its work silently but effectively. Thick stone walls keep the room cool on hot summer nights, and, warm in the chill of early spring, the floors might be adorned with intricate mosaics, tiny colored stones forming geometric patterns or images of fish and birds, reminders of the feast's bounty and the world beyond the dining room. Let's not forget the ceilings. Some were flat and painted, others vaulted, with beams carved or painted with motifs of laurel wreaths or vine leaves. These overhead details invited your gaze upward, a subtle invitation to pause, breathe, and appreciate the artistry enveloping you. In the background, the soft clinking of goblets and dishes blends with gentle laughter and conversation, creating a comforting soundscape. Maybe a lute player strums a few soothing chords nearby, setting a rhythm to the night's unfolding drama of food, friendship, and subtle power plays. Asterisk. As you settle into this scene, notice how every detail from the tactile coolness of marble to the soft glow of oil lamps invites you into a world where dining is more than sustenance. It's theater, diplomacy, and relaxation wrapped into one dot. In this carefully crafted space, you feel the pulse of Roman aristocratic life, the blend of ceremony and comfort, extravagance and intimacy. The triclinium isn't just a room, it's a living experience, a place where senses awaken and stories unfold. And perhaps just for a moment, you can imagine yourself reclining among the cushions, the soft murmur of voices mingling with the scent of blooming flowers, the richness of food and wine awaiting your delight. You're part of a timeless tradition, feeling the gentle tension and ease of a culture that knew how to dine in style. Now, as you sink a little deeper into the plush cushions, your eyes wander to the table before you, low, yet generously, spread with an array of dishes that seem almost endless. The triclinium's design encourages a slow, indulgent pace, where conversation and company are just as important as the food itself. You'll notice how the table's height allows easy access from the reclining positions, though it's clear that the art of eating here requires a practiced hand, or perhaps a bit of patience from nearby servants ready to assist. Imagine the tactile sensation of the cushions under your arm, soft, yet firm enough to support your leisurely pose. The textiles covering them are often richly embroidered, displaying intricate patterns of vines and flowers, symbols of abundance and fertility. Running your fingers over the fabric, you can almost feel the craftsmanship that went into every detail of this setting. Looking around, the other couches host guests, arranged not just by friendship or family, but by status and favor. The place of honor is usually reserved for the host or their most esteemed guest, while others vie for proximity to the center of conversation or the best dishes. It's a subtle dance of power, wrapped in the guise of shared indulgence. You might smile quietly at the thought of navigating the delicate balance of reclining, eating, and conversing, all without offending anyone or spilling your wine. Perhaps there's a playful game behind the scenes, a gentle competition to see who can maintain grace under the pressure of half lying, half eating, and half listening. As your gaze lifts to the frescoed walls again, you notice the vivid colors, deep reds, vibrant blues, and lush greens, still remarkably preserved. The scenes are not just decorative but narrative, telling stories of gods and heroes, of feasts and festivities, much like the one you're imagining. These images remind everyone present of their cultural heritage, a shared tapestry that connects past glories to present pleasures. The floor beneath, with its cool marble, is often dotted with ornate rugs, softening footsteps and adding warmth to the room. The scent of freshly swept stone mingles with the delicate perfume of flowers brought in from the garden outside, creating a soothing atmosphere that invites you to relax fully. Between the couches and the surrounding walls, small niches hold oil lamps, their flickering flames casting gentle shadows that dance across the room. The light is never harsh here. It's carefully managed to create a cozy, intimate ambience, encouraging whispers and soft laughter. Imagine the quiet bustle behind the scenes, servants moving silently with trays of food and wine, their steps muffled on the rugs, the occasional clink of a glass or plate breaking the soft murmur of voices. These moments, fleeting yet vital, keep the feast flowing smoothly without drawing attention away from the guests. The triclinium also often opens onto a courtyard or garden, allowing for fresh air and natural light during daytime meals. Picture lush greenery spilling over stone walls, the gentle rustle of leaves, and the distant chirping of birds, providing a serene soundtrack to the gathering. These open-air extensions offer a refreshing contrast to the enclosed warmth of the dining room. Sometimes, between courses, guests might stroll into these gardens, their conversation turning to politics, philosophy, or poetry. The design of the home encourages this seamless movement between spaces. From the intense intimacy of the reclining feast to the expansive calm of the natural world just steps away, you might find yourself imagining the scent of herbs carried on a soft breeze, rosemary, thyme, and mint, all commonly grown in Roman gardens and used in cooking. The mingling aromas create an invisible link between kitchen, table, and garden, uniting the entire experience in a sensory whole. Returning to the interior, the ceilings above you vary from flat painted panels to elegantly vaulted arches, each detail adding to the room's grandeur. Some homes even feature skylights or open sections to let in stars during evening banquets, connecting diners to the wider cosmos as they indulge in earthly pleasures. As you sit comfortably, perhaps with a cup of wine in hand, the room's atmosphere wraps around you like a soft cloak. Every detail, from the smoothness of marble to the warmth of lamplight, speaks of a world where dining is elevated to an art form, a carefully balanced blend of comfort, spectacle, and social ritual. It's a world where every gesture, every glance, every morsel carries meaning, and you, reclining here with ease, are part of this timeless dance. You settle back, the soft glow of oil lamps flickering around you, as the room's rich scents slowly shift. Imagine the subtle change, new aromas drifting in from distant lands, carried along the vast trade routes that stretched across the empire. Rome's reach was immense, and with it came a cascade of tastes and smells that found their way into the kitchens and dining rooms of the aristocracy. Picture a bustling market in the city, alive with merchants from faraway places. Spices like pepper, cinnamon, and cardamom, once rare treasures, now jostle alongside more familiar herbs. These fragrant powders and seeds release their scents into the air, a heady mix that promises a meal unlike any simple garden fare. Might notice the warm, sweet whisper of cinnamon curling softly above a dish of roasted meat, or the sharp citrusy tang of imported citron fruits, exotic and bright, offering a splash of unfamiliar sunshine on the palate. It's a sensory journey, one that reflects Rome's ever-expanding horizons. Exotic fruits from Africa, such as dates and figs, arrive packed carefully in woven baskets, their sticky sweetness a prized contrast to savory dishes. Imagine the texture of a ripe fig, its skin thin and delicate, giving way to a soft, jewel-toned interior that bursts with sugary juice. These fruits are both nourishment and status symbols, a taste of distant worlds. Sometimes, more unusual delicacies find their way onto the banquet table, ostrich eggs, for example, or even peacock meat, once favored for its showy feathers but appreciated for its flavor as well. You might chuckle quietly, imagining the surprise of a Roman guest encountering these unfamiliar tastes for the first time, perhaps raising an eyebrow but not turning away. The influence of Greek cuisine also weaves through Roman dining customs. Many Greek cooks found employment in Roman households, bringing with them techniques and dishes that mingled seamlessly with local tastes. Olive oil, herbs, and fresh vegetables often took center stage, balanced with the richness of meat and fish. The taste of honey-sweetened wines, often infused with herbs or spices from the East, might float through the air, inviting relaxed conversation and light-hearted toasts. The sweetness contrasts beautifully with the savory courses, creating a harmony that both delights and surprises. You might imagine the kitchens behind the scenes, alive with the chatter of cooks experimenting with new recipes, blending old Roman traditions with ingredients that challenge their palates. The sizzling sound of meat meeting hot coals mixes with the rhythmic chopping of fresh herbs, all under the watchful eyes of culinary masters striving to impress. Trade wasn't just about flavors but also presentation. Silver platters embossed with intricate designs from the East gleam under torchlight, while delicate porcelain cups, imported from faraway lands, hold spiced wines and fruit nectar. These objects, like the food itself, speak of wealth, power, and a world interconnected in unexpected ways. Occasionally, there might be a humorous moment when a Roman aristocrat tries a dish a little too spicy for their taste, perhaps a pungent curry or a fiery pepper that sets off a flurry of coughs and laughter. These small human moments remind us that even in grandeur, dining was an experience full of surprises. The introduction of new cooking techniques, like marinating meat in exotic blends or slow roasting with fragrant woods, brought even more depth to the culinary landscape. You can almost hear the crackle of roasting spits and smell the smoke infused with unfamiliar woods, each bite telling a story of lands conquered and friends made. This culinary evolution also mirrored Rome's political ambitions. Serving rare and distant foods wasn't just about taste. It was a way to display the empire's vastness, the spoils of conquest, and the elite's ability to command resources from every corner of the known world. Every bite, every sip, carried with it an unspoken message of power and prestige. Yet, amidst this opulence, you might pause to consider how many hands and miles these ingredients traveled to reach the table. The bustling ports, the caravans crossing, deserts, the ships braving storms, all weaving together to create this moment of sensory delight. So, as you recline, savor the imagined taste of spiced lamb, tender and rich, accented by the sharp tang of pomegranate seeds, a fruit imported from the East, prized for both flavor and symbolism. The sweetness and tartness mingle, a perfect reflection of Rome's complex and layered identity. And as you breathe in the mingled scents of fresh herbs, exotic spices, and roasting meats, you're not just tasting food but experiencing history, the story of a world connected through flavor, trade, and culture, brought vividly to life in these ancient dining halls. The culinary landscape of ancient Rome was ever evolving, shaped by new ingredients and the adventurous spirit of its aristocracy. You can imagine the excitement that buzzed through kitchens and dining rooms alike when a new spice arrived, a rare fruit was brought from across the sea, or a novel cooking technique was discovered. Take, for instance, the arrival of black pepper, a now common spice that once held the status of a precious jewel. The Romans adored its sharp, warming bite, and it quickly became a staple in the kitchens of the elite. Picture cooks grinding the tiny peppercorns into fragrant dust, sprinkling them over rich stews and roasted meats, the spicy aroma mixing with the scent of sizzling fat and fresh herbs. Then there were the delicate threads of saffron, its golden strands harvested painstakingly from crocus flowers, used not just for flavor but also to color dishes. Saffron added a luxurious hue and a subtle earthiness that enhanced the dining experience. Imagine a slow-cooked lamb stew tinged with saffron's amber glow, its fragrance light and floral, drawing you in closer, not to be overlooked are the various fermented sauces that Roman cooks loved. Chief among them garum, a pungent fish sauce made from fermented fish guts. It might sound daunting now, but back then, garum was the culinary equivalent of ketchup or soy sauce. Versatile, essential, and beloved, the aroma could be strong, certainly, but it added an umami depth that elevated even the simplest dishes. Imagine the kitchen bustling as cooks stirred pots of garum into stews, the sauce bubbling with rich complexity, its scent mingling with the sharper notes of garlic and wine. For modern noses, the smell might be surprising, but for Roman palates, it was a mark of sophistication. And then, there were the fruits and nuts from far-flung provinces, figs from North Africa, pomegranates from the Middle East, almonds and walnuts that added crunch and sweetness to desserts and salads alike. Their textures and flavors provided contrast and balance, turning meals into sensory journeys. You might picture a dessert plate lined with honey-drenched figs sprinkled with crushed nuts, the sticky sweetness offset by the earthy bite of the almonds. The contrast of textures, soft fruit, crunchy nuts, smooth honey, was a delight that spoke both to nature's bounty and human creativity. The influence of foreign cuisines also introduced Romans to cooking methods like frying in olive oil, which added a new crispness to vegetables and meats. You can almost hear the sizzling sound as fresh artichokes or tender fish hit the hot oil, bubbles dancing up around the edges, releasing mouth-watering aromas. This culinary exchange wasn't one-way. Roman tastes influenced the lands they conquered, while simultaneously being reshaped by those very cultures. The kitchen became a space of experimentation and fusion, where Greek, Egyptian, Gaulish and Eastern influences blended into new, exciting flavors. At the heart of it all was the aristocrats' desire to impress and indulge, to show off the empire's vast reach through what was served on their tables. Each rare ingredient was a trophy, a tangible sign of status, reminding guests not just of culinary skill but of political power and economic might. Yet, beneath the grandeur, these ingredients carried stories of traders braving deserts and seas, of farmers cultivating unfamiliar crops, of cooks adapting and inventing in warm kitchens, filled with the aroma of wood fires and fresh herbs. It was a living history, unfolding bite by bite. As you let these images and tastes settle, you might feel a gentle connection across time, a shared moment of curiosity and delight with those ancient diners, savoring flavors both familiar and foreign, wrapped in the warmth of flickering lamps and lively conversation. And so the story of Roman dining is not just about excess or decadence, but about exploration, connection, and the human love of good food shared in good company. You find yourself drifting away from the glow of flickering oil lamps and the clatter of silverware, stepping instead into the quieter world that follows a Roman banquet, the delicate unspoken dance of aftermath. The grand feast may have ended, but the ripples it sends through social circles are just beginning. The air is thick with whispers, the subtle rustle of silk against marble floors, and the soft clinking of leftover goblets, as guests retreat into shadowed alcoves or stroll the courtyard, sharing impressions not meant for all ears. Picture the scene: a group of aristocrats, draped in flowing togas and embroidered collars, their faces half-lit by the flickering torches lining the corridors. They speak in low tones, eyes darting sideways, their voices a gentle murmur beneath the faint rustle of fans stirred by a cool evening breeze. Here, gossip takes root, not the scandalous kind that breaks households, but the quiet kind that sows seeds of doubt or amusement about the night's participants. There's always someone whose appetite was the talk of the room. You can almost hear a voice muttering, "Did you see how he piled his plate?" Like a man afraid the world might end before dessert. It's all in good fun, of course, but these whispers carry weight. Gluttony wasn't just frowned upon, it hinted at a lack of self-control, a flaw that could tarnish a reputation carefully built over years. Then there's the matter of fashion missteps. Perhaps a noblewoman's stola got caught on a chair, leaving a slight terroir. Worse, a noticeable stain from an overly enthusiastic dip in the garum sauce. The soft rustle of silk is suddenly accompanied by suppressed giggles behind handheld fans, and you can imagine the quiet critiques exchanged over polished marble balustrades. In a world where image was everything, such small details could ripple outward like a stone tossed into a still pond. And of course, no feast was complete without the occasional awkward toast. Maybe a guest, a bit too emboldened by the wine, raised their goblet to a minor official, but stumbled over names, or shared in ill-timed jest. The resulting chuckles, half-hushed and careful, spread discreetly through the crowd, like a gentle breeze. In these moments, the weight of social grace was palpably every word, every gesture, a thread in the intricate tapestry of status. You might notice how the spatial arrangements of the post-feast gatherings facilitate these subtle exchanges. Groups form and dissolve near flickering torches or beside open windows where night air mingles with the lingering aromas of roasted meats and spiced wine. The faint sound of laughter blends with the gentle clinking of glasses being refilled or set aside. Occasionally, a servant passes quietly, balancing a tray of perfumes or sweetmeats, their presence almost ghost-like in the dim light. Such social aftershocks of dining were more than mere entertainment. They acted as a kind of social ledger, reinforcing hierarchies and alliances, signaling favor or mild disapproval. The guest who arrived with measured poise but left with a few discreet compliments, whispered about in corners, was one who understood the delicate balance of power and perception. Sometimes, you can almost see the practiced gestures, subtle raises of an eyebrow, the barely perceptible pursing of lips as patrons exchanged these silent messages. A glance held a little longer, a polite smile given just a touch too late, all part of a language mastered over years of courtly life. It was a game where wit, observation, and timing mattered as much as any lavish dish served earlier in the evening. Imagine yourself slipping into one of these groups, the soft fragrance of myrrh and rosewater swirling gently around you. You overhear tales of a guest who, in an attempt to impress, ordered an exotic dish but barely touched it, or the whispered amusement over a poet's misquoted verses during the evening's entertainment. These moments of human frailty and social navigation made the feasts memorable in ways beyond the food itself. You can also feel the subtle undercurrents of competition that ran just beneath the surface. Who arrived first? Who was seated closest to the host who received the most generous portions? These questions lingered, answered quietly in the exchange of glances and half-smiles. Every guest knew that dining was as much about performance and reputation as it was about nourishment. As the night deepens, the corridors and courtyards slowly empty, leaving behind only the echo of footsteps on marble and the faint, lingering scent of spiced wine and roasted game. The aristocrats retire to their chambers, minds abuzzed with reflections on alliances forged or tested, reputations enhanced or quietly dented. In this delicate social aftermath, the true feast continues not on plates and in goblets, but in stories, impressions, and the intricate dance of human connection that defined Roman elite society. As the evening winds down and the last murmurs fade into the night, you might find yourself reflecting on how these social nuances around dining shaped much more than just personal reputations. They reinforced the very fabric of Roman aristocratic society, where every meal was a stage and every gesture a line in the ongoing play of power and prestige. Imagine the hosts themselves, perhaps reclining after the guests have departed, surrounded by the remnants of the feast, the half-empty amphorae, scattered olive pits, and the faint aroma of crushed herbs lingering in the air. They sift through their memories, replaying the night's conversations, weighing each compliment or slight, each laugh or sidelong glance. Hosting was an art, requiring a delicate balance of generosity and control, spectacle and subtlety. You can picture the servants beginning the quiet, methodical cleanup, lifting heavy platters, gathering discarded napkins, dabbing it on the marble floor, the while mindful of the unspoken rules that governed their place in this elaborate social dance. Their work was the foundation that allowed the grandeur above to flourish, yet they remained mostly unseen, moving like shadows behind the curtain. As you drift further into this contemplative mood, consider how gossip itself was a form of currency. It traveled swiftly through villas and city streets, carried by whispering tongues and written notes. A well-placed compliment or a cleverly veiled criticism could open doors or close them just as quickly. The power of a feast extended well beyond the dining room, influencing alliances, political maneuvering, and even marriages. And so, the echoes of a single banquet could resonate for weeks, weaving into the larger story of Roman life. It's a reminder that in ancient Rome, as in many places and times, food was never just food. It was a language, a tool, a form of expression that connected people in ways both seen and unseen. The next time you find yourself at a dinner party, or sharing a meal, perhaps you'll catch a glimpse of these subtle dynamics, the careful choices, the glances exchanged, the stories that begin quietly over plates and wine. And in that moment, you'll understand just a little more about the timeless dance of dining and society. You settle into a quiet space, imagining the waning days of the Roman Empire's grand dining traditions, the once lavish banquet, with laughter, clinking goblets, and the rustle of silk slowly give way to a gentler, more restrained atmosphere. The opulence of earlier eras softens, replaced by simpler fare and quieter rooms, where the scents are less of exotic spices and more of wholesome grains and fresh vegetables. Picture the shift like a slow turning of the tide. Marble tables, once heaped with peacock tongues and dormice, stuffed with delicacies, now bear more modest platters of bread, olives, and cheese. The air, instead of heavy with the perfume of imported garum and rare wines, carries a fresher, earthier scent, herbs gathered from local gardens, the crispness of freshly picked apples. This transformation isn't just about food, it's about values. You can almost hear the gentle murmurs of philosophers and moralists, their voices rising above the background hum of daily life. They call for temperance, moderation, and a return to virtues that seemed forgotten amid excess. They challenge the idea that more is better, suggesting instead that true pleasure might be found in simplicity. Imagine a Roman dining room where the light is softer, the decorations less extravagant. The frescoes on the walls are still beautiful, but their themes have shifted from mythic excesses to scenes of pastoral shepherds tending flocks, quiet vineyards basking in the sun. The oil lamps flicker gently, casting shadows that invite reflection rather than spectacle. Guests gather, but their conversations are different now. Instead of boasting about rare spices or the skill of their cooks, they speak of philosophy, ethics, and the changing world around them. The wine flows steadily, but with more restraint, diluted with water, sipped slowly to savor rather than to indulge. Toasts honor wisdom and balance over fortune and status. You might notice how the pace of these meals has changed too. Where once courses came in a steady, overwhelming procession, now there's space for pause a moment to appreciate the food, the company, the quiet beauty of the setting sun filtering through open windows. This cultural shift is mirrored beyond the table. Laws and edicts begin to address the excesses of the wealthy, encouraging simpler living and condemning wastefulness. The glittering halls of patrician villas sometimes stand silent, their owners either adapting or fading into history. The energy moves toward a new ideal, one where food nourishes both body and soul, rather than serving as a symbol of unchecked power. Through all this, you sense the timelessness of these cycles. Just as the seasons turn and the leaves fall, so too do human tastes and values evolve. What was once celebrated for its grandeur becomes, in time, a cautionary tale. And from restraint, new forms of beauty and enjoyment arise. You might find yourself wondering about the dinners you've attended, how they fit into these patterns. Are there echoes of Roman restraint or excess in your own experiences? It's a gentle invitation to see dining not only as sustenance, but as a mirror of society's heartbeat. As the room dims and the last whispers fade, the story of Roman banquets reminds us of the delicate balance between pleasure and prudence, abundance and austerity. And in that balance lies a quiet wisdom that transcends time. As the warmth of the fire's last flickers mingles with the soft evening air, you're invited to drift deeper into the contemplative mood that marks this shift in Roman dining culture. Imagine walking through quieter streets, past homes where open windows reveal humble kitchens, the aroma of fresh bread mingling with herbs like rosemary and thyme. Here, the clatter of lavish feasts is replaced by the gentle hum of family meals and the occasional sound of laughter shared over simpler fare. You might picture a modest table set with earthenware bowls filled with lentils and greens, slices of rustic bread, and small portions of cheese comforting in their simplicity. The guests reclining here are fewer, their robes less adorned, their conversations grounded in the practical and the personal rather than the pomp and display of earlier days. This gradual retreat from excess, coincides with broader changes sweeping through Roman society. Economic strains, political turmoil, and a growing awareness of moral questions all contribute to the re-evaluation of what dining means. The aristocrats who once competed over the most exotic dishes begin to champion restraint, aligning themselves with philosophers like Seneca and Cicero, who advocate for moderation and virtue. Imagine Seneca's words, gently spoken amidst candlelight. True wealth is not measured by the fullness of one's table, but by the contentment in one's heart. Such ideas resonate softly, as if carried on the evening breeze, encouraging hosts and guests alike to find satisfaction beyond abundance. The culinary landscape shifts accordingly. Exotic imports become rarer, their costs prohibitive as the empires reach strains and falters. Instead, local ingredients come to the fore: wild greens, seasonal fruits, and simple grains prepared with care. The kitchen fires burn lower, the recipes more rooted in tradition than experimentation. Yet, even in this simplicity, there is elegance. The artistry of presentation remains, though expressed through the arrangement of fresh herbs or the delicate layering of honey over figs. The music that accompanies meals shifts as well: less extravagant performances, more intimate gatherings of friends sharing songs and stories, weaving connection through shared experience rather than spectacle. You can almost hear the soft murmur of these gatherings, the gentle clinking of cups, the rustle of linen tunics, the occasional appreciative sigh at a perfectly prepared dish. These moments invite a different kind of satisfaction, one not marked by excess, but by harmony. In reflecting on this transformation, you might feel a sense of continuity with our own times, where trends swing between indulgence and simplicity, where the way we eat often mirrors our values and the state of the world around us. And so, as the last embers fade and night deepens, the story of the decline of Roman banquets gently closes on a note of thoughtful grasa, reminder that in the ebb and flow of history, every feast carries with it a lesson about balance, community, and the rhythms of life itself. Imagine yourself stepping gently through time, feeling the subtle threads that weave ancient Roman dining traditions into the fabric of our modern culinary world. The aroma of fresh herbs, rosemary, thyme, and bay leaves drifts softly through the air, much as it did in the bustling kitchens of Roman aristocrats. You're invited to linger in this shared sensory experience, a bridge across millennia, connecting you to the past in the most comforting way, through food and ritual. Picture a warm, inviting table set with familiar dishes, the clink of wine, glasses punctuating soft laughter, and the murmur of stories passed between friends and family. It's easy to forget, perhaps, that many of these flavors, preparations, and customs have roots stretching back to those grand Roman banquets, where every meal was an event infused with meaning, celebration, and connection. Think about the simple pleasures that link us: freshly baked bread, drizzled with olive oil, a bowl of mixed olives, vibrant salads tossed with aromatic herbs. These staples, so common on tables today, were prized ingredients in Roman kitchens. The olive, for example, was a symbol of peace and prosperity in ancient Rome. Its oil treasured not only for cooking but also for lighting lamps, and even in religious ceremonies. You might picture the Roman feast's famed sauces: garum, the fermented fish sauce, with its potent, salty tangan acquired taste, certainly, but a seasoning that hints at the adventurous palate of those early gourmands. While modern palates might shy away from garum itself, its descendants live on in the rich umami flavors found in Asian fish sauces and anchovy pastes, subtly shaping dishes far beyond the Mediterranean. The ritual of dining, as a social event, is another thread still woven through today's culture. The Roman practice of reclining while eating might seem extravagant, but the essence of making meals a time for relaxation, conversation, and enjoyment echoes in our own customs. Whether it's a leisurely Sunday brunch or an evening dinner party where time seems to slow and the focus is on sharing, you can almost hear the soft murmurs of guests engaging in lively discussion, punctuated by toasts lifted high, a tradition with clear lineage back to Roman times. The phrase "to your health" or "salutum" still bridges these worlds, reminding us that dining is as much about connection as it is about sustenance. Visualize the communal nature of meals: platters passed from hand to hand, dishes shared and savored together, Romans excelled at creating dishes meant for sharing: stuffed dormice, honeyed fruits, spiced meats, and pastries designed not just to delight the palate, but to strengthen social bonds. Today's shared plates, tapas, mezz, or family-style dinners, carry this spirit forward. Reflect, too, on the influence of Roman agricultural practices and their promotion of seasonal local ingredients. The emphasis on freshness and seasonality, once born from necessity and tradition, now resurfaces in contemporary food movements, championing sustainability and farm-to-table dining. The rhythms of the seasons guided Roman menus, a practice we increasingly value once again. There's also a cultural legacy in the formal and informal ways meals are structured and celebrated. The Roman feast, with its multiple courses gustatio prima mensa, secunda mensa, finds echoes in the modern multi-course dinner, where each dish is a chapter in a carefully told story of flavor and hospitality. As you drift deeper into this reflection, you might notice the subtler legacies too: the artful presentation of dishes, the use of fragrant flowers as table decoration, the entertainment accompanying meals. These sensory experiences, so carefully crafted in Roman times, are mirrored in today's dining scenes, where atmosphere is as vital as the food itself. Imagine the soft glow of candles around a table, the faint strains of music blending with the hum of conversation, the gentle clink of cutlery. This ambience, so essential to setting the mood, was mastered by the Romans, who believed dining was a feast for all the senses, not just the tongue. Of course, not every Roman practice survived or remains appealing. Some culinary experiments might raise eyebrows today, but this mix of familiar and foreign, the blend of innovation and tradition, reflects the dynamic nature of food culture, constant evolution shaped by history, geography, and human creativity. So, as you savor the imagined scents and tastes of this ancient modern connection, consider how your own meal, whether simple or elaborate, continues this age-old story. Each bite, each sip, is part of a legacy that celebrates more than nourishment. It honors community, culture, and the joy of shared experience. And in this quiet, timeless moment, the spirit of those ancient Roman banquets lives on, inviting you to slow down, breathe in the flavors, and join in the ongoing dance of food, friendship, and memory. As the evening deepens, you might find yourself drawn to the story behind some of the most enduring culinary inventions that trace their lineage back to Rome. Take, for instance, the humble pasta. While the exact origins are a bit tangled in history, many scholars agree that the Romans contributed significantly to the evolution of wheat-based dishes, setting the stage for what would centuries later become pasta as we know it. Imagine ancient cooks kneading dough, rolling it thin, and slicing it with care, simple acts that would ripple through time to shape countless meals today. And what about the concept of dining etiquette? The Romans were pioneers in setting the tone for social dining behavior, from seating arrangements that reflected status to the ritualistic toasts that punctuated meals. These customs might have seemed elaborate back then, but they laid the groundwork for the manners and traditions that subtly guide our own social gatherings, those little unspoken rules that help us navigate the dance of hospitality with grace. Now, picture the bustling marketplaces of Rome, overflowing with spices from the far reaches of the empire: pepper from India, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, and silphium from North Africa, now extinct herb, once valued beyond gold. These exotic flavors transformed Roman kitchens and opened palates to a world of taste, exploration. Much like today's global fusion cuisines, the appetite for novelty and luxury in dining, so prevalent among Roman elites, mirrors our modern culinary adventurism, where trying new ingredients and bold combinations has become a shared delight. Turning to the table itself, consider the Roman practice of reclining on lectithe, the couches arranged around the triclinium. While it might sound indulgent, this posture was deeply symbolic, a marker of status and relaxation. Today's informal gatherings, where we kick back with friends over a meal or lounge on soft cushions in cozy cafes, can feel like echoes of this ancient tradition, a shared human desire to make eating an experience, not a task. You might also savor the idea of the convivium, the Roman banquet, not just as a meal but as a carefully curated social event, where food, conversation, music, and poetry combined to create an immersive celebration. This holistic approach to dining remains alive in our contemporary celebrations, weddings, holidays, and family reunions, where every sensory detail is part of the story being told. It's interesting to reflect on how Roman culinary tastes adapted over time, absorbing influences from the vast empire's diverse cultures. The blending of Italic, Greek, Egyptian, and Eastern flavors created a dynamic and evolving cuisine that both defined and was defined by Roman identity. This fluid culinary exchange is a reminder of how food transcends borders and becomes a language of connection and adaptation, a theme that resonates strongly today. And of course, there's the legacy of food preservation techniques developed by the Romans: salting, drying, pickling, which allowed flavors to be enjoyed long after harvest, and helped spread ingredients across the empire. Modern methods of curing meats and fermenting vegetables can trace their ancestry back to these ancient innovations, a testament to human ingenuity in taming time and nature. As you imagine yourself part of this continuing story, perhaps seated at a warmly lit table, surrounded by the smells of herbs and freshly baked bread, you can feel a quiet kinship with the ancient Romans. Their feasts were more than mere sustenance. They were an expression of community, identity, and the simple joy of gathering. So next time you raise a glass of wine or savor a dish rich with history, remember the echoes of those distant banquets, where the clink of goblets and murmur of voices carried hopes, alliances, and dreams. The past and present entwine in every bite, every sip, inviting you to celebrate the timeless human spirit found in sharing a meal.